I was crushed by a 12,000-pound logging truck, my body flattened to an inch thick. I died 3 times that night, and what I saw changed everything. Bruce Vanetta's life was never supposed to be a fairy tale. Born and raised in the rugged heart of Wisconsin, his childhood was a battlefield of dysfunction, shaped by parents who carried the scars of their own abusive pasts. Alcohol and drugs were their refuge, a way to numb the pain of neglect and trauma, but their coping mechanisms cast a dark shadow over their home. Verbal abuse, physical confrontations, and chaos were the norm, leaving young Bruce to navigate a world where love was scarce and stability was a myth. "We were what people call a dysfunctional family," Bruce recalls, his voice tinged with the weight of memory. Yelling, hitting, neglect, that's what I grew up with. As a teenager and young adult, Bruce followed a familiar path, seeking his own ways to escape the inner wounds that festered from his upbringing. "I tried everything the world said would make you feel better," he says. Drugs, alcohol, casual sex, and adrenaline-pumping hobbies like racing motorcycles and big game hunting became his outlets. "I was chasing something to fill the void, to make the pain go away, but nothing ever lasted." The temporary highs of reckless living only deepened the emptiness, leaving him restless and searching for meaning. Despite the turmoil, Bruce was a man of grit and determination. In 2003, he and his wife, Lori, took a leap of faith and started a business doing on-site diesel repair. It was grueling work, crawling under heavy machinery in all kinds of weather, but it suited Bruce's hands-on nature and relentless drive. The couple was building a life together, raising their young children, and carving out a slice of the American dream in rural Wisconsin. The business thrived, and for a while it seemed like Bruce had found a way to outrun his past. But beneath the surface, the wounds of his childhood lingered, and no amount of hard work could fully silence the pain. October 10th, 2006 started like any other day. Bruce woke at 5 a.m., kissed Lori goodbye, and hit the road for a job an hour away at a logging company deep in the Wisconsin wilderness. The call had come in about a logging truck with a coolant leak, spewing antifreeze and halting operations. It was a routine fix for Bruce, who'd spent years wrenching on diesel engines. He arrived at the site, a sprawling lot surrounded by dense forest, and met up with Leonard, a fellow mechanic he'd known since he was a kid. Leonard was a grizzled veteran, the kind of guy who could diagnose an engine problem with a glance and fix it with whatever tools were at hand. Together they dove into the repair, working on a massive truck. Bruce can't recall if it was a Ford, Chevy, or Peterbilt, only the crushing weight of what came next. By 6:10 p.m., after a 12-hour day, Bruce was ready to call it quits. He was down to his last couple of tools, his mind already on the drive home and the warm dinner waiting with Lori and the kids. That's when Leonard tapped him on the shoulder. "Hey, before you go, can you check one more thing?" he asked. Bruce glanced at the clock on the garage wall, his exhaustion battling his sense of duty. "I just want to get home and eat," he thought, the hour-long drive looming in his mind, but Leonard's tone was earnest. "It won't take long," he said. "There's a dirty spot on the front of the engine, seeping oil. Just take a look." Bruce sighed, his shoulders slumping. He didn't want to stay late, but he couldn't say no to Leonard, a man he'd known for years. "All right," he muttered, sliding under the truck on his back, feet first. The bumper was just behind his head, the engine humming above him, and the front axle, carrying 10,000 to 12,000 pounds of weight, loomed inches above his stomach. As he settled into position, something caught his eye. The truck was propped up on a bottle jack, a small hydraulic device meant for quick lifts, not prolonged support. Worse, there were no safety stands, no blocks or jacks to secure the massive vehicle. It had been jacked up for 3 days, running for 15 to 20 minutes while Leonard worked. Bruce's gut tightened. "This isn't safe," he thought, but he brushed it off. "It's been up there for 3 days. It's fine." He was wrong. Bruce was inspecting the engine's underside, pinpointing the oil leak, when he called out to Leonard. "Shut the truck off. I don't need it running anymore." Leonard climbed into the cab to kill the engine. The moment his weight shifted the truck's air suspension, the entire vehicle lurched. Bruce caught a flicker of movement in his peripheral vision. a flash of metal. He turned his head just in time to see the bottle jack teetering, barely holding the axle. His heart leapt into his throat, but before he could react, the jack gave way with a sickening screech. 12,000 pounds of steel crashed down like a blunt guillotine, slamming through Bruce's midsection and pinning him to the concrete floor. The impact was catastrophic, a deafening explosion of steel on cement that reverberated through the garage. Bruce's body was crushed, his abdomen flattened to an inch thick. The pain was beyond comprehension, a white-hot agony that consumed every nerve, every thought. His vertebrae cracked, his organs ruptured, his diaphragm was forced upward, collapsing his lungs. He couldn't scream, couldn't move, could barely think, but in that moment of terror, an instinct took over, primal and desperate. "Lord, help me!" he cried out, his voice raw. He said it again, weaker this time. "Lord, help me!" Leonard scrambled out of the cab, his face pale with horror as he saw Bruce pinned beneath the axle. "Oh God, Bruce!" he shouted, fumbling to get the jack back under the truck. Bruce begged him to call 911, his voice strained and gasping. They were in a remote area, serviced only by a volunteer fire department, and help was miles away. Leonard managed to lift the truck, freeing Bruce's body from the crushing weight. For the first time, Bruce could see the damage. His work uniform was stretched taut, outlining a grotesque, cartoonish flat spot from the bottom of his ribs to his pelvic bone. His abdomen looked like something out of a nightmare, impossibly flattened, surreal and terrifying. "It was like a cartoon," he says. "There's nothing in real life to compare it to." The pain was unrelenting, a relentless assault that made every breath a struggle. His collapsed lungs refused to inflate, and his left arm shook uncontrollably, a blur of motion as his body fought to survive. The jack, precariously holding the truck up again, looked like it could slip at any moment. "Get me out," Bruce begged, terrified of being crushed again. But Leonard, aware of the dangers of moving someone with a spinal injury, hesitated. "I've called 911, he said, his voice trembling. "They're coming. Hang on." Bruce's survival instinct kicked in. Reaching back, he grabbed the truck's bumper and, with every ounce of strength he had left, dragged himself out from under the vehicle. His body was trembling, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Bup, bup, bup. Then, in a moment that would haunt him, he heard it stop. His heart gave one final bup and fell silent, like an engine shutting off. In that instant, Bruce's spirit left his body. One moment, he was trapped in a prison of pain. The next, he was floating above the accident scene, looking down from the ceiling of the garage, 14 to 16 feet in the air. The transition was instantaneous, and the sensation was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. "It was perfect peace," he says, his voice softening at the memory. "No words can describe it. The Bible talks about a peace that surpasses understanding. This was it. I felt free, weightless, alive in a way I'd never known." From his vantage point, Bruce saw the chaos below. The truck loomed over the scattered tools, Leonard kneeling beside a crumpled body, his hands running through the man's hair as he sobbed. But Bruce felt no connection to the scene. "I didn't even realize that guy under the truck was me," he says. "I was just watching, like I was having a party by myself in the ceiling. It was the best I'd ever felt." As the volunteer fire department arrived, Bruce observed their frantic efforts. 8 responders rushed in through the front door, their pagers having summoned them from their daily lives. Dinner tables, living rooms, or wherever they'd been when the call came. Then, 2 more, numbers 9 and 10, entered through the back door, a detail that would later prove significant. Bruce watched it all with a strange detachment, as if he were a spectator at a play, untouched by the panic below. Then he saw them, 2 figures kneeling beside Leonard, each towering over him by about 2 feet. They were massive, muscular, dressed in shining white robes that seemed to glow with an otherworldly light. They had no wings, but their presence was unmistakable. The one on the driver's side had long hair that cascaded past his belt, shimmering in the dim garage light. Bruce knew instantly what they were. Angels, he thought, unfazed. In that moment, in the spirit realm, their presence felt normal, natural, as if they belonged there as much as the truck or the tools. The angels reached into the flat spot of the body beneath them, their hands moving with purpose, as if they were working to hold something together. One of the responders, a woman with fiery red hair named Shannon, pushed Leonard aside and began checking for a pulse. A large man in light-colored bib overalls with dark blue stripes stood nearby, arms crossed, his voice calm but final. "It's too late," he said. "He's been gone for several minutes." Shannon ignored him, her hands searching frantically for a sign of life. She turned to Leonard, her voice urgent. "What's his name?" "Bruce Vanetta," Leonard replied, his voice breaking as he fought back tears. Shannon began shouting, her voice rising with desperation. "Bruce Vanetta! Come back! Come back!" To Bruce, floating above, her words sounded familiar, like a distant echo calling him from somewhere deep within. Each time she called his name, he felt his spirit creeping closer to the scene below. Then, with a sudden jolt, he was sucked back into his body, as if pulled through the top of his head. His eyes snapped open, and the pain hit him like a tidal wave, crashing over him with merciless intensity. "Oh no," he gasped, realization dawning. "I'm the guy under the truck. It's me." The pain was unbearable, a torment that made every nerve scream. His vertebrae were spider-cracked, his abdomen crushed, his lungs collapsed. He looked to his left and right, searching for the angels he'd seen from above, but they were gone. "I was terrified," he says. "I needed them, and I couldn't see them anymore. It felt like God had taken them away when I needed them most." The absence of the angels, coupled with the excruciating pain, was too much. "I don't want this," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "It hurts too bad." His heart stopped again. For the second time, his spirit rose to the ceiling and a tunnel appeared. A long, glowing passage stretching upward at a 45-degree angle, with a brilliant light at the end that pulsed with warmth and promise. "I knew heaven was there," Bruce says, his eyes distant as he recalls the moment. "I could feel it, like it was calling me home." He rocketed toward the light, the sensation like being in a fast car or a carnival ride, exhilarating and unstoppable. The peace he'd felt in the ceiling intensified, wrapping him in a warmth that erased every trace of pain. But Shannon's voice cut through again, piercing the serenity. "Bruce, come back!" His spirit halted, then reversed, pulled back into his body with a force that felt like being yanked by an invisible cord. His heart started once more, and the pain returned with a vengeance, sharper and more brutal than before. Shannon's face was inches from his, her eyes fierce with determination. "Mister, you're on the verge of life and death," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "What do you have to fight for? Do you have a wife? Kids?" For the first time since the accident, Bruce thought of Lori and their children. The realization hit him like a lightning bolt, cutting through the fog of pain. "God was using her to remind me why I had to stay," he says. But the pain was relentless, and doubt crept in. His body was broken, his lungs failing, his spirit longing for the peace he'd felt above. "I don't want to fight," he thought. "It's too hard." His heart stopped a third time. Back to the ceiling, back to the tunnel, back toward the light. The sensation was the same. Speed, momentum, the pull of something greater. But this time, as he sped toward the light, a calm voice spoke, cutting through the chaos with a clarity that stopped him in his tracks. It was God. Bruce is certain, though he saw no figure. The voice was serene, authoritative, and unmistakable. "If you want to live, you're going to have to fight, and it's going to be a hard fight." Bruce hesitated, the allure of the light and the peace it promised tugging at his soul. He'd spent his life running from pain, chasing fleeting moments of relief. The idea of fighting through this agony felt impossible. But Shannon's voice broke through again, relentless and fierce. "Bruce, come back!" His spirit reversed, pulled back into his body for the third and final time. His heart restarted, and he opened his eyes to see Shannon's face, her red hair a blur against the harsh garage lights. "Don't close your eyes," she urged, her voice a lifeline. "Stay here. Fight! Medflight arrived, their helicopter a roar of hope in the night. Bruce was airlifted to Wisconsin's top trauma center, where the head of the trauma department, called in from home, led a team of surgeons in a desperate race to save him. When the doctor emerged from the operating room, his face was grim as he spoke to Lori. "In all my years running this trauma center, I've never seen a body so badly crushed and still alive," he said. "Your husband must have one hell of a will to fight. But his body is so damaged, I don't expect him to live through the hour. Cross your fingers." Lori's response was resolute. "We're not crossing our fingers," she said, her voice steady despite the fear. "We're praying." She gathered family and friends from their church, and they formed a circle in the hospital waiting room, thanking God for every 30 minutes Bruce remained alive. Hour after hour they prayed, defying the doctor's prognosis. "Every 30 minutes was a miracle," Lori later told Bruce. "We just kept thanking God for more time." The next morning, the doctor returned, his eyes wide with disbelief. "I didn't think he'd make it this long," he admitted. By midday, he agreed to proceed with additional surgeries, though he warned Lori that the odds were still stacked against Bruce. Over the next few weeks, Bruce underwent 5 major operations, kept in a medically induced coma as doctors fought to stabilize his shattered body. His injuries were catastrophic, major arteries severed in 5 places, a condition medical studies said no one had ever survived. His small intestines, crushed beyond repair, reduced to 2 small segments totaling just over 100 centimeters, barely enough to sustain life. His L4 and L5 vertebrae spider-cracked and D-shaped, his body thinner than his spine at the point of impact. In March 2007, while still in the hospital, one of the remaining intestinal segments failed, dropping him below the critical 100-centimeter threshold. Fed intravenously, Bruce was starving, his body wasting away. He lost 65 pounds, his once strong frame reduced to a gaunt shadow. "My aunt came to visit and didn't recognize me," he recalls. "She walked into the room and said, 'Oh, excuse me, I'm in the wrong room.' That's how bad I looked." Desperate to leave the hospital, Bruce clashed with his doctors. "I was going crazy in there," he says. "I told them, 'Give me a colostomy bag, let me go home. You can't keep me here forever.'" One doctor, frustrated by his persistence, snapped back, "Mr. Vanetta, we're not keeping you here forever. We don't expect you to live 6 months to a year." As Bruce teetered on the edge of death, a man named Bruce Carlson in New York woke up 2 mornings in a row at 5:00 a.m. with a divine message ringing in his mind. "Buy a plane ticket, fly to Wisconsin, and pray for Bruce Vanetta in the hospital. If you do, I'll perform a miracle." The first morning, Carlson hesitated, shaken by the clarity of the instruction. He told his wife and pastor, unsure if it was real. The second morning, the message came again, undeniable. He booked the flight, crossed the country, and walked into Bruce's hospital room. When Carlson placed his hand on Bruce's forehead and prayed, something extraordinary happened. "I felt the power of God flow from his palm into my body," Bruce says, his voice filled with awe. "It went straight to my stomach and I felt my intestines come alive." Days later, doctors confirmed the impossible. Bruce's small intestines, once reduced to a fraction of their length, had grown to 9 to 11 feet, roughly half their normal length. It was a creative miracle, one of 2 that would define his survival. The other was his survival itself. Doctors found no record of anyone living through major arterial damage in 5 places, making Bruce a medical anomaly. Bruce spent over a year in the hospital, enduring countless surgeries, complications, and 2 years of grueling rehabilitation. The road to recovery was brutal, marked by setbacks and moments of despair. But he emerged with a purpose that burned brighter than the pain. "God saved me for a reason," he says. "I'm the last person who deserves it. I've made bad choices, lived a messy life, but if he'd save a knucklehead like me, he'd save anybody." Today, Bruce travels the world, sharing his story of survival, faith, and the reality of God's love. From the ceiling of that garage to the operating table, from the tunnel of light to the voice of God, his experience has transformed him. "I'm not afraid of dying anymore," he says. "I've felt that peace. I know what's waiting." His message is simple but profound. God loves us despite our flaws, and He wants a relationship with us, not just in the afterlife, but every day. Spend time with Him, Bruce urges. Get to know His voice. It's real, and it changes everything. Shannon, the red-haired woman who prayed him back to life 3 times, was an unlikely instrument of God's grace. A former Catholic who'd rejected faith at 18, she'd only recently begun a spiritual journey after encountering unexplained phenomena in her home. She didn't believe in God until she had to, Bruce says with a chuckle. But God used her to save me. Bruce's story is a testament to the power of divine intervention, the presence of angels, and the resilience of the human spirit. It's a reminder that miracles happen in the messiest moments, that God's love reaches even the most broken, and that there's hope beyond the pain. As Bruce puts it, if God can save me, He can save anyone, and that's why I'll spend the rest of my life telling people, He's real and He loves you.